Hari Hari. We are on texts 29, 30, and 31. Arjuna is describing what he is feeling and what he's going through after Krishna has drawn the chariot between the two armies, specifically in front of the people that Arjuna loves the most, to whom he has the most attachment, the greatest and deepest bonds of affection. Arjuna says as follows, "My whole body is trembling. My hair is standing on end. My bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand and my skin is burning." Text 30, he goes on to say, "I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of the Keshi demon." 31. "I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsman in this battle. Nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness." Arjuna is displaying the classic in the sense of the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, markers of what it means to be attached. Everything that Arjuna has described here is about his attachment to the outcome. His body is trembling, his hair is standing on end, his bow Gandiva slipping from his hand, his skin is burning. He sees only causes of misfortune. He sees only causes of misfortune because what he is attached to is fortune. And not only that, to what his definition of fortune is. What he has defined to be fortune, what he has defined to be victory, what he has defined to be happiness, he does not see it. And his definition of such things is the reason why he cannot see happiness, fortune, victory. He is attached to a very specific, clear picture of what he wants the outcome to be. And because of this attachment, his skin is burning. He cannot stand. His bow is slipping from his hand, and his whole body is trembling. Now, this is not to at all make light or to trivialize symptoms or people who are going through depression. Obviously, where there is scope, need, necessity for mental health counseling and therapy, that must be absolutely taken up. And those persons must be given all support. Such persons must be cared for, given the space they need, given the time they need, given the resources they need to get the emotional and mental help that they need. But from a purely philosophical standpoint, what we see here, what Arjuna is going through, Arjuna's case here is not one of mental distress such that it requires therapy. That is not what Arjuna is going through here. What Arjuna is going through here, he is describing exactly what happens when an otherwise healthy individual, emotionally, mentally, and so on, is experiencing the consequences of harboring attachments. That is all that Arjuna is experiencing here. He's not undergoing any mental health crises. When there is mental health crises, there must be mental health provided, mental health care provided. This is not what Arjuna is going through. Arjuna is suffering from the consequences of harboring attachments. We live in a mansion, yet in the basement of our mansion, we have stored kegs of dynamite. All it needs for there to be an eruption, an explosion, whether that be anger, whether that be distress, whether that be any of the symptoms that Arjuna is describing here, in order for that to happen, all that is needed is a small spark, a little catalyst, and those kegs of dynamite will explode. What Arjuna is experiencing here, what we are witnessing here, is the kegs of dynamite that Arjuna has kept within his consciousness. These kegs of dynamite are attachment. Hundreds of thousands of attachments, hundreds of thousands of kegs of dynamite that we keep within our consciousness that we don't even know are there. We don't even know we have such attachments until a catalyst comes and sets it off. In fact, it is when a catalyst comes and sets off one of our attachments that we know we have such attachments. Attachments that we have been carrying for lifetimes. They're called samskaras and vasanas. Well, rather, these samskaras and vasanas, which are tendencies, lead to us to have such attachments. But these attachments, we've harbored these attachments even from childhood. Belief systems, traumas, experiences that we've had in the past. We have created attachments around such traumas, experiences, conditionings. Later in life, a catalyst comes along, sets a spark, and we are immediately cast into the same situation that Arjuna finds himself in now, because our attachments have not been fulfilled, and they erupt into anger, fury, resentment, hatred, symptoms of depression, not depression, symptoms of depression, unable to handle, being overwhelmed by any given situation and not being able to self-regulate, self-soothe, for lack of a better term. Again, I'm not talking about mental health issues. That is distinguished and different from suffering from the consequences of harboring attachments. Completely separate, entirely different. Mental health issues require mental health care options and resources. Desire, oftentimes spiritual practices, spiritual schools of thought will talk about how desire is the problem. No, it's not. Variety, experiencing variety or duality is not the problem. Having preferences is not the problem, is not the issue at all. The problem is our attachment. It is our attachments that cause the issue. When we listen to a piece of music, if we are attached to a particular instrument, if we're attached to a very specific composition of the entire musical piece, then while the music is playing, we're always going to be looking ahead in anticipation for that particular piece or that particular instrument without experiencing in full the music that comes before. This is an attachment. Once we're listening to that instrument, that portion of the music to which we are attached, we feel a momentary and temporary exhilaration. When it passes, we then either turn off the rest of the musical presentation, or we long for what has passed, but in either case, we are no longer fully and 100% attuned to the music that comes after the part to which we were attached. And this is how we go through life. As we have hundreds and thousands of attachments, and even though we have hundreds and thousands of attachments, which may sound like a lot, the problem is attachments narrow our focus, narrow our understanding, narrow our mindset, and we miss out on the full beauty, the full scope, the full experience that is our existence. Not only that, not only do we miss 90% of what existence has before us, not only do we miss all of those experiences because we're either hankering or regretting something to which we are attached, we then put ourselves quite often in the exact position in which Arjuna finds himself in here. Cannot stand, trembling, hair standing on end, because he is in such fear of an outcome that has not even happened yet. It is an attachment in his mind. It is a vision in his mind to which he is attached. He has become so narrow-minded, so myopic in his consciousness, in his understanding. He cannot see anything else other than the vision in his mind to which he is attached. And therein lies the cause of what he is experiencing here. It's an attachment. Desires have nothing to do with the problems we experience. It is not about desires. Apuriyamana machala pratishtam samudra apa pravishanti yadvat. Desires will come like rivers flow to the ocean. So what? Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve seshantim apnoti na kama kami. The person should be like the ocean. The yogi is the ocean. No matter how much water comes rushing into the ocean is undisturbed. And completely stable. Desires are not the problem. The fact that we have a material body means that we're going to have desires. If we do not have desires, being in a material body, the jivatma, the soul, our spiritual selves, being in a material body, if we do not have desires, go to the emergency room. Something is wrong. You are not healthy. The body is deteriorating. The body is sick. The body is diseased. So if you do not have desires, go to the doctor. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, taste, touch. All the senses are trying to interact with the sense objects. That is the healthy functioning of a material body. A material body without desires is a dead body, without senses. I am not talking about pratyahara. This is not pratyahara. Pratyahara is the fourth of the 8 steps in the Ashtanga Yoga process. I'm not talking about atyahara. Krishna is not talking about atyahara when he describes how the yogi can withdraw the senses from the sense objects. That is mastery. That is mastery of the senses. A horse that cannot run is different from a horse that is guided by the rider. A horse that cannot run is sick, needs to go to the vet. Horse being an example for the senses, eyes, ears, and so on, the desires. If our material body cannot function, there is disease, there is a sickness. That is not the same as the expert rider mastering the horse, mastering the senses, dictates to what, when, where, why, and how the senses interact with the sense objects. So we're not talking about mastery. We're not talking about the lack of desire. We're talking about mastery. Pratyahara, that's different. But when we go to the extreme of no desire, the body is diseased. Nothing wrong with desire. It is our attachments to those desires that is the problem. Dhyayata vishayan pumsa sanghas teshu pajayate. Sanghat sanjayate kama. Kama krodho bijayate. If we contemplate the sense objects, the senses are going to follow. The senses will follow our contemplation. Dhyayata. Dhyayata is dhyana. It is the 7th stage on the Ashtanga Yoga process. If our contemplation, if our meditation is on the sense objects, guess where our senses are going to go? They're going to go to the sense objects. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment. Sanghat sanjayate. While contemplating sangat, association, attachment, kama, desire arises. Attachment comes, desire will always be there, but attachment comes, we do not fulfill those attachments, krodhat bhavati sammoha. Anger and then foolishness. Desires are not the problem. We really need to start at contemplation. Dhyayata vishayam pumsa. We can contemplate on sense objects, or we can contemplate on the Supreme. Wherever we concentrate, that is what we are going to associate with. That is what we're going to be drawn to. That is what we're going to empower, uplift, and engage in. Desires are not the problem. We have a material body, there will be desire. Variety is not the problem. Variety is not the problem. Variety is indeed the spice of life. It is attachment to a specific type that causes the issue. I'm not even talking about preferences. One can have preferences. It is about being attached to the preference. desire, variety, preferences. These are not the issue. The issue is simply to what are you attached? Where your attachment is, having an attachment is going to cause all of your problems. Sometimes, not sometimes, quite often, much too often, we hear that the spiritual processes are about eliminating or eradicating ego or ahankara, this I am misidentification with the body. Yes, that is the most accurate way of describing it, is a misidentification, because we are, once again, quoting one of my favorite philosophers, or rather quoting a philosopher who has one of my favorite sayings, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. We're spirit beings having this experience. So a lot of times we hear about negating or eradicating ego. This is erroneous. It is not about eradicating ahankara. Bhumirapano vayu kammanno buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritir ashtadha. Ahankara is one of the 8 material elements: earth, water, fire, air, mind, intelligence, and ego, ahankara. These 8 are the Supremes, are Krishna's inseparable energies. It is a material energy, prakriti, material energy. Ahankara is equated with earth, water, fire. It is an element. It is a necessary element for a spiritual being to have a human experience. Without ahankara, the spirit soul, our essential spiritual self, would not be able to manipulate this world of matter, would not be able to move through this world of matter. Ahankara is essential for our existence and experience in this material world that is made of prakriti, material elements. Whether these elements are gross or subtle. 5 of the elements are considered gross, and 3, mind, intelligence, and ego, are considered subtle. Subtle, yes, but still material and still elemental, still essential for the spirit soul, the jivatma, to exist in a world of matter. Essential. So we're not trying to rid ourselves of ahankara any more than we are trying to rid ourselves of our mind, any more than we're trying to rid ourselves of water, any more than we're trying to rid ourselves of fire or air. We're not trying to rid ourselves of ahankara. We're trying to make sure that our ahankara is pure. By pure, I mean it is like a pane of glass. It is unobscured. Think of ahankara, now we'll use a number of examples here. Think of ahankara as the transmission in a car. I'm not a mechanic, so I may be getting this all wrong, but please bear with me. You'll understand where I'm going. Without the transmission, no matter how much horsepower the engine can produce, the car is not going to move. It is a transmission with all its gears and whatnot that translates the horsepower in the engine to rotation of the tires. Without the transmission, you will not get that rotation of the tires. So the Jivatma is the engine, the car, the tires, that's this material world. In order for the life force, the life energy to be manifest in the world, the transmission, Ahankara, is necessary. The problem is if Ahankara is hijacked. The problem is if, in this age of AI or perhaps sci-fi movies, is when the Ahankara, the transmission, is hijacked by erroneous beliefs. The transmission is taken over by a hacker. Then what the engine tries to do, it will not translate properly into the rotation of the tires because the transmission has been compromised. Our Ahankara has become conditioned, has been cluttered with erroneous beliefs, cluttered with and filled with attachments. So the pure nature of the soul cannot manifest, cannot shine through, cannot influence and interact with the world from its natural, spiritual nature. The interaction becomes perverted. Another example I like to use is of a chariot. The intelligence is the charioteer. The horses are the senses. The chariot, of course, is the body. The passenger, that's you and I, the Jivatma, the soul. Ahankara, again, this example is limited, but it provides a particular type of visual that I want to share. Ahankara is like the hijacker who has gotten into the chariot and is holding the passenger, that's you and I, hostage, and is forcing the driver, the intelligence, to drive the chariot here, there, and everywhere. Generally, it is the passenger who dictates the destination to the driver, correct? But when the Ahankara has hijacked the situation, the ego has hijacked the situation, then the passenger sits in silence, the Jivatma, and the mind and intelligence, along with the senses, are at the entire bidding of the Ahankara. Ego. That is a problem we have. So I use that example just to show the dynamic of what can take place. So it is not about ridding ourselves of Ahankara. It is about making sure the Ahankara has not hijacked the chariot. It is making sure the transmission has not been hacked. It is making sure that the Ahankara actually functions as it should. And that is as a method to transfer the living nature, the living energy of the Jivatma into a dead world of matter. It is the adapter, if you will. Taking the energy of the Jivatma, transforming it so that it can animate matter. That is the purpose of the Ahankara. The problem is when we identify and we think we are Ahankara. We are not. We are Jivatma. The Ahankara acts on our behalf. But the problem is that the Ahankara is a place where all of our attachments rest. Ahankara is where this erroneous belief rests that I am all of these experiences that I've been through, the aggregate of my experiences, the aggregate of my karma, the aggregate of my traumas is who I am. You are not. You are not the aggregate of your experiences. You are not the aggregate of your traumas. You are not the aggregate of everything you've gone through. It exists, but it exists in the Ahankara. We are Sat, Chit, and Ananda. The Jivatma is of a purely spiritual nature. So the antidote, and this is the anticlimactic part, the antidote to attachment is detachment. And detachment is not running to Africa, giving up everything, selling the house, and going to help people find water in the jungle. That is not detachment. That is called Falgu Vairagya, and it's going to harm you and your loved ones going forward. That is not detachment. I take that back. It very well could be detachment, but it is not the act of one thing or another that determines whether or not one is detached. It is the consciousness. If an attachment is an erroneous belief, detachment is the correct belief. That's all it is. It is a belief system. This is why the Bhakti Yoga process begins, the number one stage. Just consider there are 9 levels, 9 steps to mature, pure bhakti, love. The first step is Shraddha, often translated as faith, which it does indeed mean, but it means so much more. It also means belief system, your worldview. When you look around, what do you see? The very first stage in Bhakti Yoga is addressing your worldview. The very first stage in Bhakti Yoga is addressing what do you believe? Because what you believe or what you contemplate on colors absolutely everything. So we must first find out, what do we believe? And from there, work on purification. If we believe we are the aggregate of our experiences that exist in Ahankara, we are in trouble. If we believe that we are the aggregate of the attachments that live in our Ahankara, we are in trouble. We have to change this erroneous belief. That is detachment. All we have to do is adjust our belief. What do we believe? At first, that belief that we are the spirit soul, that we are Jivatma, at first that belief is going to be simply an intellectual one, but that's a start. Because the mind, intelligence, and ego are 3 parts of our subtle reality. We have a physical reality of this material body, right? The gross body, physical body, made up of earth, water, fire, air, and so on. But our subtle body also exists and is also a vehicle, part of the vehicle which the spirit soul in which we travel. It is a vehicle in which we as spirit souls travel. So even though the exercise in the beginning is an intellectual one, it is one of the mind and of the intelligence. As we contemplate on that belief, just as we contemplate on the sense objects, right? If we contemplate on the sense objects, dhyayatu vishayam pumsa, what happens? Sangat. We associate with that belief system. So if we hold to the belief system, the belief idea that we are spirit beings, just by continued association, contemplation on that belief, what happens? Sangat. We associate with it. We come to realize that we are eternal, Sat, aware, Chit, full of bliss, Ananda. And then the Ahankara does not dissolve. We're not trying to dissolve the Ahankara. The Ahankara is no longer the hijacker. The Ahankara is no longer being hacked by the aggregate of our experiences. The Ahankara is now a smoothly running transmission. And we, the engine, the Jivatma, we journey through the world, we move through the world with this smoothly functioning transmission, going where we please and expressing, living in the material world with a spiritual, uplifting mindset. We are no longer careening down the highway of material existence, crashing into everything. A wonderful, wonderful Norwegian expression. It is not the mountain that kills you, it's your inability to ski. The tree is just being a tree. The slope is merely being a slope. The ditch, the rock, they're in perfect existence. So the people in our lives, the world around us, everything around us outside of us are exactly as they should be. They are on their own journey, doing their own thing. They are exactly as they should be. When our Ahankara is pure, when our transmission has not been hijacked, we can navigate every aspect of life because we are situated in a spiritual space. Our consciousness shines forth. Our consciousness is able to manifest. So no matter what the world throws at us, we can handle it. Not only can we handle it, we can transform it and use it to the betterment of ourselves and everyone around us. Hari Hari.